tutti, ciao, and welcome to another episode of Live at 5 with Louise in the Demi DPU kitchen. So today it's all about the eggplant again. And no, I'm not bored with eggplant yet. I hope you aren't either. There's so many different options for eggplant. So today's eggplant is going to be Barchette, Barchette di ripiene. That's in Italian. And what it means is like eggplant boats, stuffed eggplant. So the eggplant looks like boats. So let's get started. And we're going to begin by turning some oil on. Olive oil, of course. It all starts with olive oil. I have the burner. I'm going to set it at about medium high. There we go. And a little olive oil to the bottom of the pan. There we go. Enough to cover it. Love the olive oil. And then, so what we're going to do is we're going to flavor the olive oil with some garlic. So here I have one little clove of garlic. I'm going to take the flat edge of my knife, smash the garlic so that it's easy to peel off the skin of the garlic. And voila, I smashed it so hard it broke in half. And that's exactly what we need in the oil. So I'm going to toss both these halves into the oil and let them begin to do a little browning. And my alarm just went off and I'm trying to remember why I set it. Okay, so there we go. We're going to let that sit and heat up and begin to brown. And while we're waiting for the garlic to infuse its magic into the olive oil, I'm going to show you what to do with the eggplant and how to make those cute little boats. So I got a little head start. So look at these little guys. They used to look like this all together, and now they look like this. So I'm going to show you how I did this. So basically, with this recipe, I'm going to cut the eggplant horizontally, lengthwise, right through the stem. I'm going to keep the stem cap on because if you cut it off, then you have a hole in your boat and then your stuffing falls out. So the other thing is, this recipe I made before, and guess what? It was gross. So I'm making some adjustments to this recipe. So initially, it's one of Dina's recipes. Oh, this is so funny. So I'll keep working and while I tell you the story of this. So this is what our objective. We're going for our little eggplant boats. And the way to make an eggplant boat is, so here you see that the pulp is still on the inside, and I'm using like a melon baller. And just take the melon baller and start scooping. So start scooping out the pulp. Isn't that cool? Look how that works out. This is like amazing. Look at that. Just scoopy scoop. You're going to want to leave about 1/4 inch of the pulp along the edge so that, again, we don't make a hole in our boat because this boat is going to hold some stuffing. So we're scooping. So back to my story. So I made this dish. It's one of Dina's recipes. And when I made it, I was actually in my Airbnb piece of shit equipped kitchen. The kitchen was awesome, but the utensils in there not so awesome. So when I made this dish, whenever I made a dish, I would run upstairs because I was in the same building with Dina and Vito, and I'd have them taste what I made. And I tasted this and it was like, oh, this was gross. So I'm going to tell you some of the adjustments, that I made to compensate for what went wrong the first time. So anyway, I gave a sample of what I made to Dina and Vito, and they were so kind and generous. They had a little bit of feedback, but they were nice about not saying this tastes like crap, which it kind of did. Part of the reason that it tasted like crap is I didn't cook it long enough. and the temperature in the oven I don't think was hot enough. So I've made those adjustments, and I'll show you what those are. Oh, so let me show you what's going on over here with the garlic and olive oil.
While you're doing that, Rachel just logged in.
Oh, hi, Vera. So this is what's going on. You see 2 chunks of the garlic just getting little oil bath and bubbling up. So we're going to leave that sit for a little while longer. I'm going to keep an eye because, of course, you have to be careful that the garlic doesn't burn, because then it leaves a bitter taste in the olive oil. And essentially all we're aiming for is a little olive oil flavor infused in the oil. Oh, or garlic, sorry. We want garlic infused in the olive oil. So I'm back to the boat and just scooping out all the pulp and then just can get to a point where I'm scraping. It kind of reminds me of like how the native peoples in the Northwest used to take trees and hollow them out to make canoes. We're making our own little canoe, our own little boat here with eggplant. So scrape out the pulp, again leaving about 1/4 of an inch around the edge and to the bottom, because we want our boat to hold this yummy stuffing that we're about to prepare. So there we go.
Linda says her mother is here as well. I'm not sure if that refers to your mother or Vera's mother.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, just throwing that out there. Linda's here.
Hi, Linda. I'm thinking she's the mother to Rachel and the grandmother to Vera. Maybe that's it.
Got it.
Yeah, because she's in California, so she's not with our mom. All right, so look, this is what I have. Scraped out all the pulp, leaving about 1/4 of an inch. Wait, let me scoop out a little more of the bottom here. So these, this eggplant, and I had 2 of them, came from the market. These are globe eggplants, and I have some in the oven cooking, and those came out of the garden. So here we have 4 eggplant boats, Barchette. And let's pull the garlic out of the olive oil because it's starting to smoke a little bit, so we don't need that. There we go.
Now you pull the garlic out of the olive oil rather than leaving it in because
I don't want to bite the garlic later.
Yeah.
So we just want a little subtle flavor and hint of the garlic included in this dish, and so we do it by infusing it in the oil. Now we're going to take our little boats, their little barchette, place them on a cookie sheet or a baking tray that's lined with parchment paper. So let's put these little guys right next to each other, and there we go, empty. We're going to season with a little salt and pepper and olive oil before they go into the oven. So here we go, a little drizzle of olive oil in, because we're just a little bit, because remember the eggplant is like a sponge and it soaks up whatever it comes in contact with. And I can't help it, I have to lick my fingers. Because that olive oil is so good, I don't want any of it to get wasted.
From Tuscany.
Actually,
no,
from southern Italy. So Julie, my comment moderator, just mentioned the oil being from Tuscany. So a couple of weeks ago, we had quite the dissertation on olive oil and how the Tuscan region of Italy has done a phenomenal job of marketing their olive oil. The flavor is a little more subtle, a little lighter. I personally prefer the flavors of the olive oil from southern Italy, Puglia region, as well as Sicily. Okay, so there's a little olive oil in our boats because our boats need to stay nice and moist.
While we're on olive oil, Linda wants to know can you use olive oil that's already infused with garlic?
You could. I would kind of wonder about it. So let's do a little sprinkling. What I mean by I would wonder about it, one, for me, it's more around the freshness and the temperature changes. So how was that garlic infused in your olive oil? And where did that garlic come from, or the olive oil come from? So my bias is that the olive oil we're using is from Italy. So there's a little salt in these. I'm going to be jumping back and forth. I'm remembering that question, Linda. And so it's so funny that Linda's asking about garlic infused olive oil, because I think Linda's more interested in me cooking this for her versus doing it on her own. But yeah, those I know that there's a lot of olive oils out there that have different flavors infused in them. Being a purist, I prefer to have my olive oil stay olive oil, and me being control and in charge of what flavors get infused in that olive oil. So
you feel like the olive oil is more important than it being infused with garlic. That
correct.
The quality of the olive oil is
correct.
The most important part.
Well said,
Thank
comment
you.
moderator.
Thank you.
Yes, it's the quality. So, earlier I said alarm went off, and it wasn't quite sure what it was for. I think it was for my boats that I put in the oven 40 minutes ago to come out, to make room for the big boats. By the way, in terms of these big boats, I think for planning for a meal and how much to serve someone, 1/2 of these globes would absolutely be enough for like a main dish. In fact, the Italians consider the stuffed eggplant a secondo piatti, which means the second serving or the second course, which is the main course in Italy. All right, let's pop this into the oven for 20 minutes. We have a little 20 minutes on the timer.
You got it.
Thank you.
And while we're doing that, what is up with the Italians and eggplant? What's that about?
Oh, look at these. Ooh.
Ooh.
Oh, those got a little crispy.
Okay. All right.
Okay, those are a little crispy, but these are going to go into the oven. And let's get that going. So 20 minutes on those. And now, while we have this hot oil, we're going to add the pulp from... Okay, that can go back up.
Okay.
So we're going to add the pulp into the hot olive oil, and it's smoking, and we all know what happens in our kitchen when it starts smoking.
Okay. Yeah.
We don't want the fire smoke alarm to go off. So the pulp is going straight into the olive oil that now has a little flavor, a little hint of garlic. So all the pulp that I pulled out of my 4 boats are in the pan right now. And earlier, before we went live, I chopped up some tomatoes. Now, I picked these out of the garden, and I used the really small ones. So I just kind of filled up a bowl and then chopped them up into little pieces. These are also going to go into the frying pan with the pulp from the eggplant. And so we're going to give this a little stir.
Now, how long are you going to cook the pulp and the pomodori?
Yeah, great question. So the pulp and the tomatoes get cooked down for about 15 to 20 minutes. And with everything, we're going to give it a healthy dose of pepper. And this is where you could have a little creativity going on with your seasoning. Another option might be to throw in some pepper flakes if you like it a little spicier. So, little pepper, and now a nice healthy dose of salt. And we're going to cook this up. Let that go for about 15 to 20 minutes. So while that's beginning to cook down and the tomatoes start making a... Oh, just as an FYI, I have this on about medium high. There we go. So it's medium high.
Linda's comment about the garlic oil is, so the control freak comes out.
Yes! So true.
So how is this different than how you made it the last time? Is the oven different?
Oh, yes. Great question. So Julie's asking, one of the comments is, or one of the questions has to do with, how is this method different from the way I previously cooked it? A couple of things. One, I'm pre-cooking the boats, or pre-roasting the boats for 20 minutes in an oven that's almost 400 degrees. So that's one difference. And also, I'm sauteing and cooking the pulp, so the inside of the eggplant is being cooked up with tomato, and now we're going to add some bread. So this is also an interesting little dynamic or difference from the first time I attempted this dish. Dina said use breadcrumbs. So in my mind, I used breadcrumbs the way we use them in the concept of breadcrumbs that we have in the United States, which are really small. That is not what the Italians mean when they say breadcrumbs. They're talking about little pieces of really hard dry bread. And I don't know if you guys remember from when we made the panzanella, I have this friselle, which is, look at this, super hard, right? I'm gonna use a couple of what appears to be like bagels. They're not, but they kind of look like bagels. I'm gonna throw them in a little Ziploc bag. We're gonna give them a little crunch to make them kind of chunky, but certainly not breadcrumbs, like we're thinking of breadcrumbs. And you can use, I'm gonna use the bottom of my bowl, I'm gonna crunch it out. And then these chunks of dry bread are going to go in with the tomatoes, and so the tomatoes are cooking down and releasing some of the moisture in them. It'll make this bread all nice and soft, and so in it goes to the pan. So we're just using so if you're making this and you don't have the friselle, you could use like maybe just one or two pieces of bread would work, be equivalent in terms of quantity. So this is going to cook down. Here we go, cookie. And then,
So I noticed that the eggplant from your garden is much smaller. It's more like the eggplant emoji on our phones versus the
Exactly.
globe eggplant.
So let me show this to you. Okay, so my fear of undercooking was overly compensated this time for overcooking. So you'll notice it's a bit dark and crispy on the top.
Still looks delicious.
It does look
It
delicious.
looks amazing.
In fact, I'm going to have to try one right now. So look at one of these little baby boats.
Yeah.
So Julie's question around the shape of the eggplant. The eggplant that you see in the pan here is eggplant that came out of my garden. Oh my God.
While you're doing that, did you know
Oh my God.
that the kids use the eggplant emoji as a phallic symbol in their text communications?
That's an interesting little tidbit.
I know, and your garden. Thank you. And your garden eggplants are that exact shape, whereas the globe are they have a little more girth.
Yeah. I'm not gonna take the bait.
Did I go too far?
Oh my gosh.
Oh wow, that is amazing. You gave me a really good piece here.
Let me give you a plate.
The crunchy oh man, it's amazing. The flavor, it's not overcooked.
It's not. I like it like this. I like the crunch. Oh my God, I can tell you, this is like 100 times better than the first time. The element of creativity, trying a recipe, liking it or not liking it, loving it, being quasi okay with it, and then making some adjustments. So again, I'm pre-roasting those boats, these boats that eventually are going to get filled, pre-roasting the boats at 400 degrees for about 20 minutes. And then our stuffing is being sauteed in the olive oil that's been infused with a little bit of garlic. And then the tomatoes get added, as well as our hard dry bread and some salt and pepper. And then we just let that do work its magic for about 15-20 minutes. You want to stir occasionally, keep an eye on it, whatever, when we're cooking.
Now, you're doing differently this time than what you did before was, well, you're modifying Dina's recipe a little bit, right?
I am modifying Dina's recipe because I want a different texture than what I got as a result the last time. So back to your question around what is it about the Italians and eggplant?
Yeah.
Great question. So one of the things about this particular eggplant dish, eggplant is used frequently in southern Italy. They grow them in southern Italy. They have a lot of different recipes for eggplant. In fact, I could probably do a Facebook Live every week for a year and just barely scratch the surface on all the different eggplant options. You can stuff eggplant with meat. It can be stuffed with a sauce. This is being stuffed only with the pulp from the eggplant, as well as a little anchovy, capers, and olives. That's it. That's going in here.
Anchovies?
Yeah, they'll go in after.
Oh, okay.
They're going to be added later.
Okay.
So that's what is included in these little boats, and then they get roasted in the oven for 40 minutes at 400 degrees. And now we're just going to wait for that to cook down. Back to the lesson on eggplant and Italians and eggplant. So one of my favorite things about Italy is going to different regions of Italy and how the pasta shapes change, the sauces that they use change, how they do eggplant changes. So there's different varieties and different possibilities and creativity around eggplant depending on what region you're in. Oh my gosh, this got hot. I'm not going to leave that in the pan resting. It got super hot. Okay, that's going to keep going. So eggplant, it was brought to Sicily, hence Arabs. So the Arabs invaded Sicily, I don't know, hundreds of years ago. And what's interesting, and one of the really unique aspects about Sicily is the influences of so many different cultures on their food, on their language, and how they do things. So if you go to Sicily, you'll see buildings that kind of look like you're in the Middle East or something. They're like have the Arabic influence along with the Greek influence that most of Italy has as well. So it's yeah, I think that's what I'm going to say about the eggplant. It came from, it's a gift from the Arabs. The Italians can grow it easily in Sicily, and they put it to good use. See, the other thing about the eggplant is that we mentioned earlier, it's so hearty that you can use it as a main dish. And so you're wanting to have less meat in your diet or find a way to integrate vegetables in a fun, creative way. In fact, this would be a great vegan recipe because there's no cheese or eggs involved. It's not gluten-free because, I like my breadcrumbs. Okay, so this is really hard. I know that I was raised to believe that it was impolite to eat in front of people, so I really want to eat these eggplants. They can be served hot or room temperature. Let's check in on our pan.
You have another 9 minutes.
Because I hear it sizzling.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that when you made the recipe before was that this filling was undercooked.
It was undercooked because I did not do this sauteing thing. And I'm actually going to add another little dash of olive oil so that it doesn't stick to the pan. We'll just give a little drizzle here. There we go. So are there any questions about this process or about this particular dish? Because this is what it's going to look like when you're finished. And once the once the stuffing is finished, then it will put that in the boats. So let me talk about what happens once the pan finishes, this part of the dish finishes in the pan. I'll stay on track, stay focused.
You got this.
So as a result, the bread is soaking up the yumminess and the flavor from the eggplant as well as the tomatoes, infused olive oil, and then the salt and pepper. So it's a delicious little combo going on over here.
But you're also the eggplant, the globe eggplant, not like the emoji that is in the oven. You're cooking that a little longer than you did before, and with a better oven. Now, how is that different?
It's just different that because one, I'm roasting it, so because one of the things that I didn't like with the first recipe is the texture of the shells from the eggplant. So it was too thick previously and also not cooked long enough. So I'm doing a little pre-cooking before the stuffing goes in. And then once this eggplant, tomato, bread combo cooks down a little more, then we're going to take it off the stove and then add olives, capers, and 1 anchovy. That'll get all mixed together, go back into the boats, and then the boats will return to the oven for 40 minutes at 400 degrees. That's what we're aiming for, and this is where we're going. And then after 40 minutes, you'll get this, which is delicious.
And it is delicious.
So
you got 6 more minutes on the, you can see it reducing down, but take a look at it. Maybe you'll get 6 more minutes on that. And then the boats in the oven is what you have 6 more minutes on.
yeah, so the
And
boats
then
in
a
the
little
oven,
bit more on the pulp.
yeah, maybe a little bit more on the top. So I'm thinking, well, I want to show you how to stuff the boats, although it's not rocket science. But I do want to show you, how to mash up. Oh, I know what else goes in once we're finished with this kind of goulash-looking mixture concoction here in the pan. We're going to get a little fresh mint, which gets added to the goulash. Let's just call it goulash now. It'll be softer. It's our code word. So we're going to tear up a little bit of fresh mint by hand.
And we'll call goulash an Italian word.
Goulasha. So the goulasha in the pan is cooking down. And then we're just going to tear a little bit of the mint, fresh mint that's going to be added to the mixture from the pan, along with the capers, anchovies, and olives. So, let's do that. Oh, this mint smells so good. Actually smells like spearmint. I always get so confused when I'm trying to buy mint and spearmint at the nursery. It says it's spearmint, and then another one says it's mint, and I smell them and they smell the same to me. But this truly does smell like spearmint. Okay, so I'm going to put that in with the capers so that it doesn't get forgotten. We have that included. Let's put these to the side. Otherwise I will eat them all.
And then what else are you doing different with the goulash? Are you using the same ingredients or so you mentioned capers and the mint and
all
tomatoes?
All of those are the same ingredients that I did initially with Dina's recipe. So, this is kind of Dina's recipe with another little additional spin to it, which is the length of cooking time, and that I'm doing a lot of pre-cook on what gets stuffed in the boats that it goes in. So there you go. That's it. I know it's like, what else can we talk about? What else do you want to hear about? I kind of feel like it's like, this is what happens when somebody comes to your house and you're cooking. You like just chat, but we can't hear what y'all are saying. Other than, what do we want to talk about? What else?
So wait, you haven't like do you have something else going in that goulash? Goulash. What's the Italian pronunciation?
Luscia.
Goulasha. You have something else going there. Is it something like, I mean, Italians love fish. Is it something anchovies? Do you have anchovies going in there? Or no, that's
No.
later.
Yeah,
Is that a garnish? Is that what it is?
No, it's not a garnish. The anchovies will get added to the goulash after it cools a little bit. But I'm telling you, it's hot in this kitchen.
without the alarm going off even, which is brilliant.
Yeah, that's an accomplishment. Speaking of the alarm going off, I have to tell you a story about earlier in the week. So I was upstairs vacuuming, I was working in my office, and I'm like smelling this cooking. I'm like, wow, the new neighbors are cooking something that smells amazing. And I'm smelling it, and it's getting stronger, and it's like maybe an hour before lunchtime. I'm like, wow, maybe they're using the crack pot. It smells so good. Next thing I know, my smoke alarm is going off. I'm like, what? I run down to the kitchen and then realize it's me who forgot I put chicken breast in the oven to boil, or into a pot of boiling water to prep snacks for my dog. The water had totally boiled out, and then the chicken was smoking, burnt to the bottom of the pan, and that's why the alarm was going off. And
That's the most clever way I've ever heard anyone compliment their own smell of their own cooking.
exactly.
I thought it was the neighbors.
I thought it was the neighbors, and it was me who was cooking and burning some chicken for my dog. And I need some more wine in my.
I'm gonna get that. You check on the boats in the oven.
So yeah, good
Yes.
suggestion. Yeah. Here's what we're so. How many minutes has it been on the boats?
It's been 20.
Okay, so let's pull the boats out. And you can see.
Now these are, as I've mentioned before, this has much more girth than the other ones. Now,
Yeah,
would you
so
cook
we're
them
gonna-
longer than the other ones because they're
No.
bigger and maybe are they
we
thicker?
don't because they're not thicker.
Oh, okay, they're
So-
not thicker.
Oh, that's hot.
Hot,
So
not much.
y'all can see there's a little bit of browning going on the edges of the boats. And so this is, and the edges are actually, the shells are a little softer. So
Is
I
that
know
what-
that whole 20 minutes in the oven helped a bunch with it. It's going to help a bunch with the texture.
Is that what you're looking for, them to be softer?
They need to be softer, exactly.
And that, is that one of the things that went wrong with before?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It wasn't cooked long enough, or the lower oven temperature. Anyway. Ow!
Ow,
Oh, that
ow.
pan is hot! Ouch! But apparently, if you're like a real chef, you have all the nerve endings on your fingertips kind of burnt off, and you don't even notice the hot stuff anymore. So this is gonna be a long Facebook Live. I might need to do some editing later on this one so that it doesn't feel like we're watching paint dry while we wait for our goulash to cook.
I think your pulp and pomodori might be close to finished.
Yeah, it's getting close, and yes, because it's getting a little crispy and crunchy. We
Okay.
like a little crispy and crunchy. So, yeah, we have a little sticking going on here. Oh, I love those little crunchy tidbits. So let's turn this off. Since we started this shortly after the shells went in.
And the olives go in later too? They don't
So
get
now
cooked.
what we're gonna do is, I'm gonna
That's true.
put this hot goulash up. That's what we're calling it.
Goulasha.
That's not even a word.
It is now.
But yeah, it's now a technical cooking term that we just made up. So let's remove this hot pan out of the way.
Carefully.
We're gonna put the goulash into this empty
Mhm.
bowl. It's gonna cool down. Whoa!
Woo!
So this pan is
Oh,
heavy
okay.
and it's hot.
And we get an
So-
opportunity to see Louise's muscles that
Yeah, my muscles.
that
So I'm
we
gonna.
enjoy.
This is what we do. This is how this works. It's heavy, and thank you for moving my fancy wine glass. So the goulash mixture. This, remember, is eggplant, bread. You can see the bread's all soft, and tomatoes have cooked down. And look at all this yum crunchy in the pan.
Oh,
We
that
love
looks
this.
delicious.
We're gonna scrape this because this is adds a little texture. There's some amazing flavor in here. So this goes in here. We're gonna let this cool down a tad. Bam de bam. There it is. Awesome. This goes back onto the stove out of the way. Okay. So this is what it looks like once the tomatoes, the pulp's been cooked down. You can see that the pulp is soft. It's been steamed and kind of marinated in the olive oil as well as the tomatoes, and all those flavors are fusing together. It's so delish. And now
Okay,
You know what?
now comes the olives.
now comes the olives. But before we put the olives in, the olives could go in whole, but I would like a little olive treat in almost every bite I get.
Yeah.
So we're going to use my favorite tool of all time, the mezzaluna.
Mezzaluna.
So let's get a cutting board. And this is one of the awesome things with mezzaluna. I'm just going to put the olives on the cutting board with the mint and capers on there. And apparently, Orso thinks somebody's nearby. 1 anchovy. And then the mezzaluna is going to work its magic. And we're just going to chop it up so that there are small pieces of this flavor in every little bite. So there we go. Chop, chop, chop.
Brilliant.
And
That looks delicious.
rinse off the mezzaluna. There we go. Add this magical flavor to our goulasha. There we go. Mix it all together. And then, there we go. Give it a good stir. This is a little hotter than it should be, but hey, for the sake of demonstration and finishing up this dish, getting it in the oven so that we can taste it all together. Ooh, that's still hot. There we go. And now we're going to fill up our boats. Our barchette, which is the Italian word for little boat. And then once we fill up the boats with this marinated, sauteed flavor train, ooh, I cooked down a lot because it came out of these boats and there's some room left in the boats. We can take on more survivors here from the Titanic. There we go. So scrape out of the bowl, fill up the boats so that they're evenly distributed with, oh, this looks so good.
It does look good.
Smells so amazing. There we go. And then before the boats go in the oven, they are going to get a little sprinkle of dried oregano.
Oh,
So
yeah.
here we go, little dry oregano. Sprinkle, sprinkle, sprinkle. There we go. And of course, if a little olive oil is good, more is better. We give it a little drizzle to the top of the boats. And then back into the oven they go for 40 minutes. And that, my friends, is Barchette di ripiene, stuffed eggplant. This is a meal in its own. You make a little salad with this, have a little glass of wine. It's delish. So here we go. This is going in the oven. And then we're going to show you, voila. So 40 minutes, it's, so 40, so 6:20. And then they come out. Okay, they really don't come out looking like this because these are smaller eggplant. These are but all crispy, and seriously, this was delicious, y'all.
Yeah.
Hopefully you all are fans of eggplant now. Yeah, eggplant. Eggplant was like, eggplant parmesan was my gateway drug into eggplant. And now I love this stuff, eat it all kinds of different ways. And here's another option for you all too. Ciao, hope you enjoy. And if you make this dish, post photos and tag Dini DPU on Facebook. Love to see your efforts. Ciao, see you next week when we're gonna have some pasta next week. Ciao.